Hello, I'm Kala'i Miller. In this episode of Home is Here, we're on Hawaii Island exploring the town of Honokaa. It's on the north part of the Hamakua coast, about an hour from Hilo, a little longer from Kona. Its modern day history starts in the 19th century when sugar was king. The first sugar plantation in this area was started in 1876, attracting immigrant workers. The last plantation closed in 1994, drastically altering the way of life for the Honokaa community.
I never thought of Honokaa as a plantation town as a kid. I just kind of thought of the whole island as plantation, because everywhere you drove, forget having a clean car, it was mud all over the place. But in Honokaa proper, you could see the miles and miles of sugarcane fields. You could see the fires when they were burning the cane. And then, of course, we all got up to the 7 o'clock whistle in the morning. So we knew everybody was going to work, and we started getting ready for schools.
Everyone that came here for the plantation, whether you ended up working in it or not.
My grandma's dad actually came over from Japan in the 1800s to work for the sugar company.
My dad was a journeyman welder all his life, from right after high school till retirement. And Pahau boy, his father was an immigrant from Japan and worked on the plantation as well.
My dad worked in the plantation. That wasn't his only job, however, but he also had his own field because his father and family also raised cane in the Kalapa area.
My grandmother's side would have come from the Azores. They came in 1883 on the ship Bell Rock. My grandfather's family, they were from Madeira, and they all came by ship. My grandfather, JJ, John Jose Andrade Sr., would have worked in the Pahau plantation as a blacksmith, and he helped to pay for the education of all his younger siblings, who became doctors, teachers, administrators, and then he used the rest of his money, still working at the plantation, to acquire 500 acres of land. And then it was this property where he raised cattle, and he was then a butcher. He would then go to all the plantation camps selling 1 pound pieces of meat, which my mother said she shared. That he had this big skewer, and the kids would help put the meat on the skewer, and then he'd go from camp to camp.
I started in 1982, working in the field for Hamakua sugar. When I first started plantation, from the time I started from two something minimum to when I left, I was making 8 something, I think. But we survived. $1 used to be a lot of money,
Today, the Hamakua Sugar Company survives. Owner Francis Morgan purchased the 35-mile plantation, and the flailing sugar operation has been resurrected.
Well, it was a major gamble buying this thing. A lot of people have wondered why I did it. I was reaching retirement age. It appeared to me that if it stayed in the hands of the former owners, that there was a sizable chance that within the near-term future it would be shut down.
He was all in. He liquidated everything. He was the sole owner. Like, this man laid it all out on the table, and the workers knew that. And it's one of the things that really stuck out with me when I think about Hamakua Sugar, because he was vested and they knew it. And in return, the workers gave back. And that's one of the differences between the closure of Hamakua Sugar and the other sugar mills, is because we saw what Mr. Francis Morgan did, because he believed that he could turn it around.
We knew it was coming, but yet we tried to do whatever we could to continue saving whatever sacrifice we wanted to do. You could see it going down slowly from different parts of the islands where sugar company was just closing.
So once it got to the point when they had the furloughs and they started cutting back, some of us started putting 2 and 2 together, kind of reading between the lines and trying to see, okay, if We don't have sugar. What are we gonna have? Where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? How are we gonna live? You know, what's gonna become of Honokaʻa? What's gonna become of the families?
Well, for me, my dad was already retired by the time that the plantation closed down, but then he still felt the effects of it. They were concerned of what's gonna happen to the town. Since they lived in plantation houses, are they gonna get kicked out or can they still stay there? You know, that uncertainty affected many, and a lot of his friends were still working at the plantation, so they really felt the pinch of that, you know, like what's gonna happen tomorrow.
Changed the whole town. They didn't have jobs, number one. When the plantation started, they went to the hotel. There were about 3 or 4 hotels, and they could only handle so many people.
My mother shared that when the last parade of all the trucks and equipment ran through Honokaa town, the whole town cried. So, you know, it was a very sad time because people knew nothing else. But at the time, I was at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, so I was very science-oriented. And I said, you know, this is actually an opportunity for us to start doing things to create new careers for the next generation.
They had like different things that was offered, you know, like workshops, but just to adjust and adapt and thinking, okay, well, now if we go work someplace else far, we got to get used to that. You know, working away, working with different people and everything.
When the plantation finally closed, the last final harvest in 1994, it was pretty devastating to this community. And I think through talking to people, we've learned that it really has never gone back to that same feel. So there's definitely a nostalgia for some of the things that we're doing and some of the other things that are happening in the future to bring back some of those feelings, even though we can never bring that back.
Thankfully, there was a lot of resilience and they got over that hump, but it was a big transition for all.
We are a resilient people. We are resourceful. We did what we have to do to survive the closure of Hamakua Sugar. And I think that's one of the best traits of Honokaʻa is because we're so adaptable to whatever is happening, the circumstances.
If you ever get the chance to visit Honokaa, folks say it's a great place to take some time and learn the history of this plantation town. And if you sit down and you talk with the locals, you'll find that they love to reminisce and share their stories.
Something happened a few months ago. There was a complaint about the car show that happened in Honokaʻa. It brings out a lot of locals and their classic cars, and it's a lot of fun, and they like to burn rubber and get very into their cars. We don't know who it was, said that he longed for the days of Honokaʻa when it wasn't like this. But we were laughing because the stories that we have about Honokaʻa, it was a rough and raucous and loud and wild, wild west. There was an abundance of crime, there was an abundance of activity. The judge and the sheriff were participating in the okolihau trade. I mean, there was just gambling and horse racing in the middle of town. This was one of the more wild towns, probably in all of Hawaii. It was the third largest during the peak of the plantation era. And we have a display case over here that is a collection of weapons that were confiscated by the sheriff. So I think it's really funny that people try to think of it as a sleepy little town when it really never was. And so the car shows and things going on are so appropriate for this town. We're loud, we're wild, we have fun here.
I think Honokaa is unique and special because of its cultural heritage. All the different peoples that came to Hawaii and that were here before we all came makes it so interesting. You know, the food, the dress, the thoughts, the religions, everything that people do in their lives.
I was born at Okara Hospital. I don't even say Honokaa. I say, Okada Hospital. And of course, the people in Honokaa know that, but nobody else knows that.
My grandfather made monies first with his butcher business. And then in 1924, they built the Andrade building, which would have housed a restaurant, bar, a 15-bedroom hotel, and there was a dance hall. They actually did taxi dancing, and that was the men would pay 10 cents to dance with a girl. Camp Tarawa in Waimea had a large number of Marines, and they would come down to Honokaʻa town. And Honokaʻa had 5 bars, and my mother shared that, in their bar, they would line up all the glasses on the counter and start pouring, and by the time they got to the end, they had to go back to the beginning and pour again.
I was just 10, 11, 12, or something like this. My title was a suicide boy in Honokaa, and I enjoyed it. And the Marines, I made a lot of money. Kala, Hawaiʻi say. I think I'm a suicide boy. This is part of my equipment that I made money on. So this is an antique.
When they built the swimming pool in the late 50s, that was one of our best things that ever happened to teenagers in Honokaa. Because then we didn't have to stay home, we could do our chores and then go to the pool.
The 4th of July, the Business Association would have all these games for the kids, and we'd get a dime for every game we participated in, except boxing. You got 25 cents a quarter, so guess who boxed?
Growing up there, I remember playing in the park, running through the cane fields, playing in the gulches, finding the ponds.
We had our food for the day, which usually was a bottle of bug juice, soy vinegar, a little bit sugar, black pepper. So whatever fruits we came on, mango, guavas, timbleberries, we had something to eat and went out and played just everywhere.
A lot of the businesses here have been owned by many generations. Unfortunately, we've had a few where the younger ones didn't want to take on the family business, but they're like iconic places where you mention a name and people can tell you stories of patronizing the business or the family members. From my childhood and throughout my adulthood, Ikiuchi hardware store resonates a lot with me.
Well, in the town, they have sweet shop. And I remember the old timers working there, and the old Tanaka fountain, and the old Tikana cereal store, how they used to do the meats, the Honokaa Club.
There was Ujiki store, which is across the Salvation Army, and they had all different kinds of groceries, fresh produce. I'd go there to get my vanilla popsicle with my papa. And butterscotch candy was his favorite.
My dad never went to school, 6th grade is the highest he went to school, and he had a business for 50 years. Castillo Music Store. He sold furniture, refrigerators, music instruments, records. All my dad had earned to feed the family came from the plantation people.
One of the big things that happened here in Honokaa was my father and mother lost their laundry business through fire. When the fire was going on, we could see from Mrs. Awong's preschool. Growing up as a child with my father, he bought another commercial laundry and changed the name to Harris Sanitary Laundry. I just about knew everybody in Honokaa because of the business. One of the important things for me was I knew a lot of Wahinis because I could talk to them and I could talk to the mothers, and I was very good at speaking English.
My sister Colette and my mom and my father decided to open a shop at the Fujino store at the other end of town, and they called it CC John's Snack and Shop. I do remember my parents always saying to be nice to the store owners because they're letting us charge. We cannot pay right away, and they let us pay as we can, and that's why we have to appreciate them.
One of the things that I remember the most and that stands out for me memory-wise about Honokaa is the parades. We always have parades.
It's almost like instead of a class reunion, a town reunion.
During these celebrations, they remember all the good that came out of their relationships and of their time working, because you know, it wasn't easy, but they don't spend their time boo-hooing, you know. They're just glad to see each other and talk story, like you say, and bring back all the good old memories.
There was something about the stories in this town that just drew me in and made this my home and made me want to just be solid here and stay. I'm very passionate about this town, like I haven't been anywhere else.
Honokaa is a very interesting little community. I think that mostly for me, it's a village. You know, when I was young, I couldn't stand it. Everybody knew what you were doing. You went to school. If you did something naughty at school, by the time I got downtown, my mother was spanking me. You know, everybody knew what you did. But as I matured and got to be an adult, I realized that that was my village protecting me.
The people of Honokaa are terrific. They're right on. Many of my friends are still Honokaa people, you know, that were raised here and lived here. That's kind of one of my reasons that I moved back to Honokaa.
It's strange how when we're younger, we can't wait to leave. During our days in the 60s, we called it the rock. Oh, we can't wait to leave this rock. But here we are back again. A lot of us have ended up coming back to our hometown, which of course is getting larger and larger. The essence of Honokaa is within you, and that is why it's special.
I was born and raised in this home here, and now I'm 95. My memories of the old people in Honokaa, old I said, is that all of them is moved out and all these new people come in. I wish I could go back 55, 60 years again to where I could get all the old timers with a lot of heart, you know, and I love them, and I always will.
Honokaa and its community is big-hearted. Everybody knows each other or intertwined somehow, and whenever there is something going on or people come together to help, or even if somebody's just sick in town, people go to their house and bring food or check up on them, and a lot of personal interest, interaction among the people. I'm glad to say it still remains, even when since childhood to now, that sense of community still is around.
I think it's important that people understand why Hawaii is Hawaii. And you get a feel, especially when you go to the little towns. I think that's what I would like people to leave with. We get along, everybody has their differences, but we have our commonalities, and you know, and that's what we focus on.
I'm a product of Honokaa because this is where my roots are, and this is where my roots can stay.
You always never forget where you're from. I'm grateful and proud to be brought up in this little town here.
Money Street in downtown Honokaa. It's like stepping back in time with many of the plantation era buildings that are still standing. Along that 1 mile stroll, look for these plaques. They mark the buildings that have been added to the National Register of Historic Places. One of them is home to the Honokaʻa Heritage Center, where the town's history is being preserved.
We should preserve the stories of all that has happened in Honokaa and all the small towns along the plantation coastal areas, because slowly they are disappearing.
They always say if the walls could talk, I wonder what they would say. You know, and I always think if the buildings could talk, what would they say? What have they seen?
The Heritage Center is just so important, I think, for the community. If you don't know where you came from, you may not know where to go. That's important for especially young people to know. And that's what we're trying to do here, is tie everyone together, whether they've moved away and haven't come back and come back for a little while, or have their grandkids living here. We want everyone to know that they started here, they had ties here. And so this is an area that we can keep it all together for them.
The Heritage Center was opened in July of 2021, and we are a community collection of things that have been coming to us since about 2011. This building was built in 1927. It was Judge Botello, Manuel Botello, and he started out with a small car auto repair shop, and then he expanded into this larger space. It's had a lot of lives. One of the most interesting things was the Model T shop. They sold brand new cars in here. They wheeled them in through the front door, which must have been pretty spectacular. The owner of the building is still in the family, and a couple of our volunteers here are related to the family.
The way they designed the building, you know, make you thinking that you're walking right into one plantation home, like our home, and then with the homes that we were raised in, you know, looking at some of the furniture till today. I mean, my mom's house, they still got the furniture.
We see probably 20 to 30 people a day in here. We have discovered that half the people that are coming in are local, which is, to me, the most exciting thing. I think that that's validation that we're doing something good for the community, because they're coming from Oahu, the other outer islands. They're coming from Honokaʻa to see their families on the walls and learning and sharing and continuing to have trust in what we're doing.
I like meeting a lot of people, especially the old timers, because some of them I haven't seen since I was a kid. And then the recognition, like, aren't you so-and-so, or you're so-and-so's, whatnot, and we struck up this conversation and talking about the past. It really brings back a lot of great memories.
When you're in the building here, you walk in, you have that different feeling, almost like chicken skin. That's the way I feel with the exhibits. And when you walk into the different parts of the building, you're like, wow, and you look at all the old pictures, and that can bring your memory back.
One of the walls feature Hamakua Jodo Mission. I'm currently the Kyodan president, and that's been my family temple for over 100 years. And I have a lot of aloha for that temple, because it has a lot of history behind it, how it was built. It was the first sanctioned Buddhist temple built in Hawaii. I'm very proud of that wall there, because my ancestors was part of the building and whatnot of it, and for many generations on, we're still affiliated with the temple, and it's a point of pride in the community.
People walk in here all the time with their photos, their artifacts, their memories, their stories to share with us. So everything on the wall has been curated with community members.
We grew up surrounded by all of this. We grew up with the plantation, the sugarcane trucks, harvesting the cane, and all the operations that go with running the sugar mill. And we took it for granted. We never realized that one day it wasn't going to be here. I have grandchildren, so I bring them through and walk through, and the older one, she's 17 now, she was like, wow, you know, Mama, the pictures are like, do you remember this? You know, do you remember? And I'm like, yeah, and we talk about it. And then I can share with her the stories that my mom or my grandparents shared. So it's important that they come in, they can walk through, they can look at it.
It's important that as far as the younger generation to learn more about their roots. We do get a lot of students that come in via field trips, and they get very excited when they look on the walls and they say, oh, grandpa or auntie or uncle, and they might not know some pieces of history of how the town was built or how their families were involved.
Every town needs a heritage center. We have a lot of people that come from all over Hawaii that come from Plantation, whether it be pineapple, sugar, anything like that, with the same stories. What it's doing for people is that pride in who they are and who their families are. And even if they came from, I say even if, because it's plantation labor, plantation work is not romantic and glamorous. And acknowledging that it was very important, and it is glamorous. I mean, they were hard workers. They were very hard workers, and acknowledging that is really instilling this sense of pride when you put them on the wall and say, you were important.
This will never get old, you know. I can come in here and no matter if I've seen them 1,000 times, I'm gonna always like, wow, you know, walk in and kind of reminisce of how everything was.
Honokaʻa is built on shared stories, and so we may have one family's collection, but so many other people in the town can relate to it. So it is very personal. It's personal to me, although I didn't grow up here, but because they entrust me with these items and the sharing of these things and the opportunity to share for them, it feels like such a privilege to me to collect that and let them give in their own special way back to the community.
Mahalo for joining us. Because of you, PBS Hawaiʻi continues to share the stories of our communities. If you'd like to support our mission, please visit pbshawaii.org and click on the donate button. For Home is Here, I'm Kala'i Miller. Ahui ho.